this episode, we have Georgia Durante, stuntwoman extraordinaire. This is Susan Stafford with Out of the Box, and I am now starting this conversation with Georgia Durante, who is best known for, oh my goodness, well, let's see, a great stuntwoman, a great author. Title of the book is The Company She Keeps. I have the book right back here. Did you notice it?
I noticed it.
Yeah, Dale put that in, Dale. And she has started several different worthwhile things we're going to talk about. Some we can't talk about, but we'll go ahead and talk about it anyway.
If it's in the book, we can talk about it.
Yeah. If it's not, you have to say X. Okay, I'm going to start with the beginning. Georgia, when you go into her home, you see this huge Eastman Kodak poster, and it's Georgia in a bikini, and it's from 1961?
69.
69. And do you have that there? I just want to see it. Do you have it there?
I do. Let's see.
Look, that's Georgia. Is that cute?
Do you remember that?
I remember it.
You have to be old enough to remember that.
I'm young enough. I remember it.
Shall I tell the story about the girl that showed up at my book signing?
Would you please?
We launched my book in Rochester, New York, which is the home of Kodak. And the photographer who took that poster, he had one in his basement. So he brought it to the signing and he stood it up next to me. And this girl finally got to the front of the line and she looks at the poster and she says, "I remember that poster." I said, "Honey," she was like 20 years old. I said, "You weren't even born when we took that picture. How could you remember that?" And she said, "Well, I do." She was very insulted. She says, my brother had an antique store and he had one in there. That's how I know." Oh my God.
Seems like a long time ago, doesn't it?
It seems like a long time ago, and it seems like yesterday.
Yeah. Well, it was so real. I mean,
all those photographers that, I worked with at Kodak, there were like 5 of them that, we've stayed in touch over the years, and every single one of them has passed away in the last couple of years.
See, that's one of the things that I realize with people that are passing away is that I'm getting older, but I don't really think about it much until someone passes away. And we've done a gig with them, and we did a week. I mean, Regis Gilman just passed. I remember Los Angeles Weekly, Los Angeles, working with Regis. Good morning, Los Angeles. Good morning, Los Angeles. What a great guy to work with. But you've worked with several people in your lifetime, and some of that, well, I got to go back to go forward. That's the way it is. You were in danger, and you had to leave Rochester to make your way to California with a 7-year-old girl, your daughter, and $7 in your pocket. You want to talk about that with us?
Yeah, well, a mob war had broken out, and they were killing everybody who knew anything. And I obviously knew a lot. So I had to come to California, and I came kicking and screaming. And I had my 7-year-old daughter. I had $7 in my pocket. I lived in my car until I could find a friend that I modeled with. And he had a little studio apartment in Brentwood. And he let me stay there until I could figure out what I was going to do. And I had no idea. I mean, the only thing I'd ever done is drive getaway cars and model. And I had no other life's experiences. And I couldn't do the modeling because they would figure out where I was and they'd know where to come looking for me. So I'm in this apartment and I'm watching TV every day. And every time there's a commercial, it seems like it's a car commercial. And when I started really paying attention to it, I realized you could never see the driver. And I said, that's perfect. I could do that, And I talked to my friend who is an actor, and he told me where they were shooting car commercials. So I would show up on the sets and I would bug these directors until, one of them finally, after I bugged him several times, said, okay, all right, I'll give you a shot. Let's show up on Tuesday. We'll see what you can do. So I showed up on Tuesday, and he obviously liked what he saw, and he hired me for the next job, and he was impressed, and he told the next guy, the next director, and then they hired me, and there was a real need for women, and there weren't any women doing it. So anyway, I got to the point where I was turning down work because I couldn't do it all. I said, geez, if I could just clone myself, I could be a millionaire, right? And that's basically what I did. I went after good-looking women who could drive, trained them in precision, and I brought men on the company as well because, there was a lot more work for men than were for women. And I came out of the gate with people like Bobby Unser Jr., Dar Robinson.
Yeah.
These were top-notch guys. And
yeah. And the name of your company was?
It was Performance 2 Inc. Performance 2 Driving Team.
Is that an earthquake?
That is. It's just my phone alerting me to something.
And so,
but you know what my phone says? When somebody usually texts me, it says, "Aw, I interrupted happy time."
Oh, listen, wait just a minute. Now you just brought me to a great story. Okay. Tell the story when you were at a funeral.
Oh, geez. This was in a church, and the body was kind of up by the altar, and everybody's waiting in line to go up to pay respects to the body. And so it's finally my turn, and I get up there, and I'm looking down at the body, and I'm saying a prayer, and my phone goes off. Aw, I interrupted happy time.
I had you share that. I love your sharing that. I mean, that's script material. That's book material.
And then you know how silent a church can be, right? You could hear a pin drop. Everybody heard it. And I knew they were all looking at me. And I just didn't want to turn around. I stood there for 5 minutes. I was so embarrassed. Finally, I turned around and I walked alongside instead of the center aisle, and I just left the church.
Oh, it's happy time.
Oh, my God.
How long did it take you to write the book, The Company She Keeps?
It took 3.5 years, and I actually wrote the whole thing on location. You know how they're changing the lights or they're doing, and I always had a pad, a notebook with me, and I would write while I was waiting for them to do whatever they were doing. Then I would get back to the hotel room and I would put it in my computer, which was almost like a rewrite, and everybody was sleeping. It was when the sun was the hottest. They gave us like 3 hours off to rest, but I didn't rest. I was in my computer just translating everything that I had written. And then we would go back to work, and we were working 18-hour days. I never got any sleep. I just never did. But that's really how I wrote the whole book. And in my book, I thank Chevy for the time they gave me to write my book. I was getting paid to write, basically.
Did you find that you had to wait till a lot of people passed on before you could write the book because of the stories that are involved?
No, you know what? I wasn't even thinking about writing a book. That was not something I ever anticipated doing. What happened was I was doing a Bugle Boy Jeans commercial. Remember Bugle Boy Jeans?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm doubling this actress, and the scene was I'm driving a vintage Dino Ferrari, catching up to this Jeep on the road, and we get parallel, and I yell out, "Excuse me, are those Bugle Boy jeans you're wearing?" And he says, "Why, yes, they are." And then I do a 180 and go back the other way. Well, I did the 180, but the back tire caught the soft shoulder and flipped the car over an embankment, and I was heading towards a 300-foot drop-off into the ocean. All I thought about, Susan, was, oh my God, I'm wrecking a $250,000 car. right? I never thought about my life, my kids, all those things that they say, happen when you're facing death. So when I got back from location, I went to see a therapist. And the therapist suggested that I get a journal and write in it for 20 minutes a day, whatever popped into my head. So I started doing that 20 minutes a day. And all this stuff started coming out. I had never analyzed my life and the things that had happened to me. And I would reread the pages and say, oh my gosh, that's why I do that, or that's why I did this, And then I started adding dialogue. And before I knew it, I said, geez, I think this is turning into a book, but I didn't think I could write. And Sydney Sheldon was a friend of mine. So I called Sydney and I said, Sydney, I said, I think I'm writing a book here. I said, but I don't know how to write. Can you suggest a ghostwriter? He said, well, send me what you got. So I sent him like this 40 pages of this really raw journal, right? He calls me 3 days later and he says, Georgia, you don't need a ghostwriter. He said, you know how to tell a story and you have a story to tell. He said, but I would suggest one thing. He said, start out from your childhood. He said, get the reader to know you and love you so when they get to these parts, they'll forgive you.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
So I did that, and I think that's probably the most boring chapter, but and then it gets into the really horrific things that had happened,
Well, in fact, we're going to go into that. This is Susan Stafford with Out of the Box, and I'm talking to Georgia Durante. And I want to thank Wheel of Grace Unlimited for this time they've afforded us. And Georgia is talking about the company she keeps. And we've talked about the company she keeps a lot because she really does keep interesting company, even today. That was then, this is now. And we're talking, actually, we haven't started on the fact she adopted a child. Would you share that story one more time?
Yeah, well, she's actually my grandchild. My son, who he's 40 going on 16, is not father material. And the mother, they were both drug addicts when she got pregnant, and she had two other children that were taken from her and put into the foster system. So when Angela was born, they automatically put her in the foster system. And I knew nothing about this woman, so I went to the hospital to see the baby, and the baby was gone. And then I found out that she was in the system, so I got her out thinking I was keeping her safe until the mother could prove herself, but she never did, and I ended up adopting her. But when that happened at a time where I had a couple of stunts gone wrong over, my career, and I had some operations on my neck, and the doctor had told me, if you continue doing this, you're going to be in a
is that from the stunt work?
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah, and a lot of the beatings from the past. Yeah,
which we will talk about also.
Right. So, anyway, I ended up adopting her. It took 18 months for the adoption to go through, but I've had her since she was 10 days old. Mm-hmm. And I made a big mistake by allowing her to have a relationship with her birth mother, because that caused a lot of problems. And her birth mother just passed away last year with cancer. Mm-hmm. So she's having a pretty hard time. She's 14 now. She died when she was 12. So, we're going through this this teenage period, and with the death on top of it, it's not easy for her.
No, it's not easy for you either. Not easy for her, not easy for you. It's big step, adopting your grandchild. It's a big step taking on the responsibility. But you see, you make a difference. And so therefore, that doesn't surprise me. I thought you were a little crazy at first, but then I realized you're always crazy. So that's okay, one way or another. When you were talking about, I asked you simply, was this a lot your accidents and your body problems from racing a car? Being one of the first women to be a stunt woman was not popular in those days. But before that, you had incidents, another reason you had to get out of Rochester, because you had certain people that are mistreating you. And you want to tell the story about the bullet, and the gun, etc.?
Well, I was married to a very abusive guy who was in the mafia, and while we were dating, he was Prince Charming. After we got married, he became the Prince of Darkness and very controlling. When I tried to leave him, he put a gun to my head with one bullet in it and pulled the trigger twice. And then I'm begging him to let me stay, And, when this was going on, this was at the same time that, what was her name? Patty Hearst.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The same time.
Yeah, and that's when I started to realize what it was. It's kind of like you relate to your captor because they're allowing you to live, And I was doing whatever he wanted me to do, and I was staying, but I always knew there was something out there. I had to get it. I had to get away from him, And then when this mob war broke out, and they were killing everybody who knew anything. That's when I took off and came to California. And did I just say this before? My daughter was 7 years old, and yeah, I did just.
You did, but you know what? I wanted to hear it again, so thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Anyway, that's how I actually got away from him. So he was looking for me, the mob was looking for me, and the FBI was after me. For what I knew. And this driving thing became my escape. I mean, I could do this, and nobody would ever see my face.
Yeah. How perfect.
And I would make residuals as if I were an on-camera performer.
Right.
You never saw me, and I could work for every different car company. As long as they didn't see my face, but it was considered a stunt. So I would still make residuals. So that worked out. I mean, when I think about living in my car and now living in this 5,000 square foot home, you're right. I came a long way, baby.
That's right. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's good that you can talk about the past and laugh. If not, then we've got nothing. You lived it. You came out alive. It's a miracle. In fact, through your book, because of your lifestyle and near-death experiences, you've actually been able to save people from suicide. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I was doing a radio show, kind of like we're doing now, and a radio station had my book there, and this woman worked for the radio station, and she picked up the book and took it home. And I got an email from her, and she said, if I had not read this book, I wouldn't be here writing you today. She said, I plan to kill myself this weekend. And after reading your book, she said, and seeing what you went through and where you are now, if you could do it, then I can do it. And she didn't kill herself. So, and that was just one email. I got so many emails. I wasn't anticipating this book, just telling my life story, how it was going to affect people. But a lot of women that were in abusive situations, they were seeing themselves on the pages, and they were writing me. And I'm not a therapist. I really had a hard time telling people what to do, because what if that's the wrong thing for their situation? Everybody has a different situation, even though it's the same. But I didn't really want to give advice. I just wanted to build them up as people. And if they could get to a safe place, then I could guide them in that way. But it really kind of took me on another path. And instead of trying to help people individually, which was taking a lot of time answering all these emails, I started speaking in abused women's shelters and kids on drugs. And then I got into prisons. And this prison story was unbelievable. This was at Twin Towers in LA. It was Sheriff Botka who got me in to do this. And it took me like I got there early, but it took me 45 minutes to get processed in. And when I got into this room, there were like 60 women in there waiting for me. And they were chewing gum and they had their feet up on the chair and they were like, bored, just waiting for me, And I looked around, I said, oh man, this is going to be a tough crowd, right?
Right, right.
And the first thing I said to them was, how many women in here have been sexually abused or physically abused? They all raised their hand, which told me when that happens to you, it breaks down your self-esteem. And when that happens, you start hanging around with people that you think are your equal. And those are the people that end up in prison.
That's right. That's right.
And I left there. When I left there, they were spitting on each other when I came. And I got them all to start telling their stories. And when I left, they were hugging each other. And they were like pulling on me when I left. They said, please come back. Please come back. Nobody understands, And I just felt like this is what God wanted me to do,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't seek this out. It just came on me and I did it. I'm not doing a lot of it now because I have Angela and, I can't travel like I used to, but I still answer emails.
Well, the thing is that you were doing it one-on-one. And then because of the book and all the questions and answers and people seeking help, you became a little bit more important to your mind's eye because you were able to share your pain and their pain at the same time. And that's what makes a difference. That's why you make a difference. I keep on going back to that because that's the difference. There's just some people that are walking around and there's nobody home. Nobody's home. Nobody is home. Hello, where are you? Come out, spirit. Where are you? Nothing's there. And then you come across someone who is just full of life, have lived it, is in the process of living it, and wants more of it. That's you. And so, it's a good thing to be able to say, we were talking about who might do your book, by the way, movie or television series. We were talking about who might play you. Would you share that again with me?
Yeah, well, right now it's the script has been written and it's been going out to a few different producers, and it's not producers but directors, and it's like one at a time. You can't send it out to a bunch of different directors. You get the answer from one. If they say no, you go to the next one. But it's out to some pretty big directors right now, women directors, and they're also going after Margot Robbie to play me. Mm-hmm. And this pandemic thing kind of slowed things down a little bit, but yet people aren't really working, so they have time to read and they have time to really look at it. So we should hear something pretty soon about who's actually gonna do it.
Well, you're looking at all things are working towards good, as opposed to a lot of people who are in fear sitting out there saying, when is this going to be over? You're looking at, well, they're going to have to read. They got to stay home. They're not going out like they were. Things are closed. So we're going to make the best of it. That's what you just said. Mm-hmm. And that's called attitude. And so that makes a difference because your attitude is everything. And I believe that because of reading the book and knowing that there's a series committed. I mean, I believe it's a series. I don't see it as a movie.
Yeah, it's like they're looking at to do it both ways. As a matter of fact, they want it. What their main plan is to do the movie first and then back it up with afterwards. In the series, I mean, there's so much there. That's what's so hard about putting it into a 2-hour movie because you can't tell the story in 2 hours. It goes through my whole life. And there's, it's not like, what are you going to, excitement are you going to put into it? It's what are you going to take out? What are you going to leave out of the story?
Right.
There's so much going on.
And of course, now you have another book, regardless of what book that might be or when you write it, because your life keeps on attracting all these different real stories that people think they would see in a movie that are real.
Well, the next book could be The Company She Keeps Now.
Yeah. In the backyard, folks. Yes.
Oh, that's a good title. In the backyard.
Yeah. In the backyard. And then you started, or you got involved with the grandparents organization. You want to share that, please? I remember Marilyn Koo and Billy Davis and myself helping you on that, as so many other people have.
We honored you.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, grandparents' parents was I don't know how I stumbled onto this, but it was the greatest thing, because when you're going through this, it changes your life. I mean, suddenly you are a mom all over again, and I'm like 56 when I got her, and it's a lot of adjustment, and. This group had group sessions with other grandmothers that were in the same situation, and it really helped me to focus on what I needed to do, and they really helped me through the courts, and that was horrible, going to court all the time. It was awful, but it all worked out. I ended up adopting her, and then I built her. Now I'm not working, all right? And I built her a $60,000 playhouse.
I thought everybody did that. I'm sorry.
I have no income. I'm pulling from, my savings and like crazy stuff. But that playhouse, actually, because now I rent my, half of my house for vacation people and for weddings. And that playhouse is the draw for families.
People, yeah.
So it really paid itself off.
Well, and then you've got a tree house out there, and then of course you have this house. Yeah, I mean, just you have to understand, folks. You don't have to, but I'd like for you to understand that you walk into George's home and you feel you're in Disneyland. It's fun, and it's exotic, and it's eccentric, and it's comfortable. Try all those things on. I mean, it's really, I remember the very first time I was there, and I thought, what's going on? I mean, this is something. And indeed, you've used it for all the good things, and we thank you for that, because you make a difference. You haven't found life, finding life worth living. You have made it that way. That's what you've done.
I bought the house in 1983, and I've been remodeling it ever since. But my whole theme of this house was, I want people to walk in and feel like they can put their feet up on the coffee table. I want it to be comfortable, homey, cozy. I think I've accomplished that. I mean, I'm pretty sure I have. At least I know it makes me happy, even though my neighbors say living across the street from me is like living across the street from a construction site.
Well, I kind of understand that, I kind of understand that. I do.
Yeah.
Are you going to keep on adding to the house, or you think you're about finished?
Oh, I just put artificial turf all in the front right now and redid all the lighting out there. I'm constantly doing something, always.
Yeah, you're in motion. I'm going to go back to something I believe that the people would want to hear. One, because it's doesn't happen to most people. And secondly, it's something you read about. But thirdly, what a difference it made in your life, which was there was a big murder involved with 6 coffins. Would you share that with us, Georgie?
Yeah, well, when I was going through this abusive relationship with my my ex-husband, who was the mob guy, it wasn't his brother, but my first husband's brother. And he forbid me to see my sister-in-law or, anybody from that family. So I'd have to sneak to see her. And she told me that he was going to kill her. He was going to kill everybody. And could I help her? And my husband wouldn't let me do anything to try to help. I wanted to get her husband to come to the club. My husband and I had a club, so I could talk to him, but he wouldn't let me do it. And about a week later, my sister called me and she says, are you sitting down? I said, yeah, why? And she said, are you alone? And I said, no. I said, what's the matter? She said, your brother-in-law killed his wife. He killed all 4 of his children, and he killed himself. And oh my God, I just felt so guilty. Why didn't I do it anyway? Why didn't I sneak and just, I went to the funeral, and there were 6 caskets all lined up. And I had just had this experience with him putting the gun to my head. And I knew how close I was to coming to that same death. It became very real. And I just knew I had to get out. I had to get out. And every time I did, he hung me from a 2-story building by my ankles. And I just pretended to go along really with, everything he wanted. And, but I knew I was going to get out someday. I just didn't know how I could do it safely, but I did it. And that's why I think a lot of women that read the book, they know that there is a way out. You can do it, And I did it. And here I am.
And that's not all. And that's the beginning of the story. I think the people you've helped on the way, that's a whole calling in itself. Whoever thought that you'd be going from Rochester in a car, sleeping in the car, no money, trying to find a job, finding a job as a stunt woman, a good stunt woman, an excellent stunt woman, long before it was popular to be a woman stunt driver. You've accomplished a lot, but you've got a lot of hooks, a lot of guts, intestinal fortitude. And I know your mother prayed a lot for you. That's for sure. That's what they always say, your mother was praying for you through this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, when all this was going on, I tried to keep my mom and dad out of it, what was happening to me, because I knew they would intervene, and if they did, he would kill them. And I didn't want to put their lives in jeopardy, so they were really in the dark until they read my book. They had no idea of the things that had happened. Right. And then my father was mad at me. He wouldn't speak to me for about 3 months because I didn't ask him for help.
Yeah. You're thinking about writing another book, by the way, called Where's Papa?
Finding Papa.
Finding Papa.
Finding Papa. I never knew my real dad. The dad pooch that I had my whole life. He adopted me when I was like 5. He was my father. He was the sweetest, most loving, kindest man. When him and my mother broke up, he would come and pick me up on Sundays, just like a real father would, have his time. Yeah. But he's my dad. I don't even think of anybody else as my dad. But I finally found my birth father. But the twists and turns in finding him were so unbelievable that it would be an interesting book if I sit down and write it. I don't know if I will or not, but interesting.
Well, I'll tell you, if you sit down and write it, I'd be one of the persons that would buy it. So, that's for sure.
No. I would give it to you, Susan.
Oh, thank you. Oh, rightfully, that's true. As your mother, I'll never forget your mother at the kitchen table wanting my book, Shame Between Sundays. And I went to give it to her, and she said, no, I'm paying for this. I said, oh, but Mrs. Nope. You must charge. She made me pay. I couldn't believe it. She was so adamant about it, Love that woman. Okay, so if we want to order your book, we can go to your website, which is?
It's the name of the book. It's called thecompanySheKeeps.com. And they can order it there, but I can sign it to them personally or whoever they would like to give it to as a gift and send it out to them.
Or there's another option here. They can rent.
they can go to Amazon. They can download it on Kindle.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, when we get to finding Papa, that's the next thing. We'll see how long that takes, you know. What are your plans now? I mean, you're raising a 14-year-old. You've got the house that you're running and renting out because people want to escape their own homes because of this virus.
It's been crazy. I really thought, because I do a lot of weddings here, I probably do, 2 weddings a month during the spring and summer and fall. Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of weddings all planned, which, we had to, a lot of them, they pushed forward, but even now I don't think that's going to happen. And then a lot of them just aren't going to do it. So that's what was like my main source of income. And I said, oh, gosh. But what's happened is the vacation rental has gone nuts. I mean, people checking out and checking in the same day. Gives me like 4 hours to clean in between, get the cleaning people in. And they're all local people. I had a girl here a couple weeks ago. She was here with her 7-year-old daughter for a week, and she lived 2 blocks away. People been just, in their houses, and they can't go anywhere and they can't do anything. And being here is like coming to Hawaii, I mean, it's like being out of the country, it's a vacation place.
That's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. It's called Enchanted.
The Enchanted Manor.
And you can go up on the website and look at that and give Georgia Durante a call and go over and have a great time. She was saying earlier that one of her people that came to stay was Conrad Hilton. And that's about the highest compliment, because everybody can go to a hotel. I mean, any of us can go to a hotel. And so you're saying at the Beverly Hills Hotel, one of my favorite hotels, or the Bel Air, but you're at a hotel. This is so different. This is away from it all, but right in action. Does that make sense? Make sense? Uh-huh. Yeah. It's like, so you want to go do some things, but you don't want anyone to know where you are. It's kind of neat, It's fun. It's fun.
And what's nice is I meet people from all over the world, and I give everybody their privacy, but if they want to hang with me, I'll go sit by the fire pit with them, have a glass of wine. And I just met such interesting people. And when they come here with kids, when Angela was younger, she would play in the pool with them. So she had playmates all the time, and a lot of times they spoke different languages, but they somehow communicate, So It's been really good.
Well, that's the way to look at it. This is Susan Stafford with Out of the Box, talking to Georgia Durante, the company she keeps. That's the book that we want you to order. And if you want to have fun and you want to get away from the news, order the book. It's really good. I was going to ask you about working with certain celebrities. I've met several at your home. Do you have a favorite male, female story about a celebrity? Or,
do you? I had a cat that my daughter had given me, and it was black with white paws. And I was always going on location. I really shouldn't have had a cat. So Sherry Hackett, Buddy Hackett's wife, called me and said, are you thinking about giving, I named the cat White Walls because it had white paws. And she says, if you're thinking about giving that cat away, we would love to have it. And I said, consider it yours, okay? So 2 weeks, I didn't have to go on location for 2 weeks. So that whole 2 weeks, Buddy kept thinking the cat's name was Hubcaps. And he kept saying, when is Hubcaps coming? When is Hubcaps coming, right? So finally they pick up the cat. The next day, the cat has gone missing. And Sherry called me up and she says, Georgia, the cat's gone. I said, Sherry, did you feed it? She said, of course I fed it. I said, don't worry about it. He's an indoor-outdoor cat. He knows where the food is. He'll come back. So he did come back. And then about 6 months later. I mean, what they did for this cat was unbelievable. The cat loved to play in the attic, so they cut a hole in the ceiling, built a little spiral staircase up there, and then they had a little dormer window that had a bridge that went out to a tree. They spent thousands of dollars on this cat, and Buddy loved this cat. So one day Sherry calls me. She says, Georgia, White Walls is missing. It was right after the earthquake. And so I went over there and helped make signs, and we posted them all over. And she calls me and she says, Buddy's very upset. She said he's crying his eyes out in the study. And I said, tell him not to worry. You know, we'll find the cat. So she said, well, he called the police.
Called the police?
So anyway, then she calls me a couple hours later and she says, are you sitting down? I said, yes. And she said, well, she said, 2 policemen just came to our door. But he answered it. He's in his robe. His eyes are all red. He's been crying all morning. And the cop says to him, Mr. Hackett, we are so sorry. We've been up and down this street all morning, and we can't find your hubcaps anywhere.
That's funny. That's funny. It's really funny because some people might remember that Buddy Hackett at one time was a police officer.
Yes, he was.
That's how he started. So that makes it a little funnier. That's cute, though. That's really cute. Sherry, of course, has cats, and then she has cats, and then she has more cats. And her backyard is all about for the cats. I mean, you know, because she doesn't believe in taking their into claws or anything. And she's a very humble woman, and she's strong. She's tough. And we who know her love her. And that's a cute story, really is.
White Walls started that whole thing with her cats. Then she turned her whole guest house into, you know, a place for cats with all
everything.
There was like 17 cats living there. And it all started from little White Walls, you know?
Yeah. In fact, I think Buddy said if there's more than 17 cats, it's over. And I think she went to, 28, but she'd have to tell us for sure. I might be exaggerating. Maybe exaggerate? Imagine that. I don't know. I don't think so. We're going to take a break here. This is Susan Stafford with Out of the Box with Georgia Durante. And I'll be right back. Thank you. Hello again. Hello. We're back.
Susan, I think you should change the name of your program for me to Outside the Dots.
Actually, we were in Kentucky when you gave me the title Out of the Box.
Really?
Yes. We were coming back from the Derby.
Yeah.
In Kentucky. And we were at the airport. And I said, you know, I'm really thinking about writing a book or something. And you said, well, why don't you call it Out of the Box? I mean, it was just like that. And I wrote it down, and that's years ago. And so I thought this is good because who knows what's going to come on? I mean, and who knows what's going to be said, because it's definitely going to be out of the box. And so there's no, you know, limitation to speech out in this household. Speaking of which, okay, I'm counting. You have started another organization. I can't think of the name of it. You went in, that grandparents joined, you said, with what?
Oh, yeah. They just merged with One Generation, which they're working under their umbrella now. And they do incredible things as One Generation, but they have a lot of money to work with. They have a lot of donations. So when we do the events now, they'll be really big. But this year we had to cancel it because of the virus. So next year we'll make up for it.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people are obviously canceling a lot of things. We'll do that until we don't have to do it. But I hope they open up sooner. later. Everything. I hope they do, because we're too stilted. People are itchy. So once they get control over this, I hope they can.
Well, you know what, Susan? If we had just stayed locked down for another month,
Yeah,
we'd be
yeah.
we'd be out of it by now.
And that's true. That's true. I mean, I think that's true. I mean, I don't know what's true. I do so much research, and about the time I think I have an answer, it's gone already, and I'm into something else. This is Susan Stafford. Thank you for this time for Wheel of Grace Unlimited. This is Out of the Box, and we're talking to no other than Georgia Durante, who's written a book called The Company She Keeps. And she's talking about the company she kept then, but she might write another book and call it The Company She Keeps Now, which actually is not a bad idea. Really isn't. I'm not for sure. I didn't cover in this segment. I did not cover the series concept for your book. If we could just go over that one more time, because to do it just as a movie, I mean, I love the fact that you want to do your own stunt driving for you. I think that's kind of cute. So
double the woman who doubles for me.
Yeah, I like that. Double the woman that doubles for me. I like that a lot. But you do have a series there. Do you agree? I mean,
I always thought, because the book goes through my whole life. It's 456 pages or something like that. And you can't tell that whole story in 2 hours, and you have to figure out what you're going to keep and what you're going to cut out, and there's so much going on. It's be a shame to cut anything out. So I think a series would really do it justice, and you could really continue with the series and go where life has taken me now. So we'll see. That is something that they're looking at doing, but they do want to do the feature first.
I think if you take, like I loved The Sopranos when it was on. That was one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Or Mad Men, or for that matter, Godfather 1, 2, and 3. I mean, look what they have done with that. And so, and the fact that women are looking at your story, I think that gives it a better opportunity. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I really do. I think women have experienced some things in life that they'll relate to by reading my story, and that they can bring that across on film much better. I think so.
Yeah. How many women are in the Stunt Women's Association now, from when you started to where there are now? For how many were in when you started?
There's a lot of women that are in doing stunts even back then, but they weren't doing the driving stunts for commercials. It was always the men, and they would always put wigs on guys.
Yeah.
But women were always falling downstairs and doing high falls and doing all that. Women were always doing that, but it was the driving thing where it was kind of exclusive to men,
So when you started, just to cap, how many were there? I mean, were you like one of the first?
There were a couple of other girls that were doing it that, it wasn't like they were dominating the field or anything. They just, if they actually got in a pinch and they needed a woman, they would maybe call on them. But then when I came out of the box, it just, the whole women thing, because I had good-looking women that could really drive a car. I went after race car drivers. I mean, people that were already on the circuit, and I knew they could drive. So to train them was nothing, because they already had a good feel for a car. Mm-hmm. And it just worked out. Thank God,
Yeah. I certainly was. Well, you were a pioneer, if I can use that word.
I'm looking at a sign right now that I had made. It's got the Chevy emblem on it, and it says the Enchanted Manor, the house that Chevy built.
That's cute. That's cute. So what do you see for the future, or do we know?
For the future, I don't look that far. I don't have anything really left on my bucket list. I'm just taking life wherever it takes me. And it's always taking me in a direction.
I was going to say, I guess that was really kind of a stupid question because frankly, I don't know what the future holds, but I know who holds the future. But I do know that you make a difference in your life, and everybody that knows you, you have made a difference in our lives. And I thank you for doing Out of the Box with Georgia Durante. Thank you for talking to me, Susan Stafford. Thanks for being who you are, Georgia.
Oh,
really,
I love you, Susan.
I love you too, Georgia girl. And we'll talk. And we'll talk again. This is not the end.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye, sweetie.
Bye.